Think you've seen everything? Picture this. You finally buy your dream home, a serene lakeside cabin, only to have a neighbor call the cops on you the day you move in because your moving truck was supposedly disturbing the neighborhood's peace. This wasn't just some grumpy resident. It was Victoria Cross, the neighborhood association's president, who genuinely believed she was the ultimate authority. What she didn't realize was that by targeting me, she'd stirred a dormant investigator who would soon uncover a secret that would unravel her little empire and expose a massive lie that had drained thousands of dollars from the community for over 15 years. My dream had finally come true. After years of grinding as a game developer, saving every penny, I'd purchased a $500,000 lakeside cabin, my own slice of paradise. I envisioned quiet workdays, sunsets over the water, maybe even picking up fishing like my dad did. As the moving truck pulled into my driveway, for a fleeting 30 seconds, I felt like the luckiest person alive. Clear blue lake sparkled behind my new home. Picture perfect. Then Victoria Cross appeared. She was in her late 50s, silver hair in a tight bun, dressed in a crisp white shirt and khaki pants, radiating authority. She strode across the street with a commanding gait, as if she owned the entire neighborhood. Her eyes scanned my property, the boxes, the truck, even my posture in my own driveway, like a general preparing for battle. I was hauling a box of computer gear, sweat beading on my brow despite the cool morning. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp and authoritative. "Your truck's blocking traffic." I glanced around. The street was deserted, birds chirping, no cars in sight, and my truck was entirely within my driveway. "I'm sorry," I replied, setting the box down. "I can move it if it's an issue, just trying to get settled." She ignored me, pulling out her phone with the precision of someone who'd done this before. She called 911. "I'm reporting a traffic disturbance in Lakeside Meadows," she said. I stood there stunned as she reported me for moving into my own home. "Ma'am," I tried again, "I can move the truck in 30 seconds. She silenced me with a raised finger. "Yes, there's a large truck obstructing our street," she told the dispatcher. "The driver's uncooperative." I hadn't even had a chance to comply. When she hung up, she gave me a cold smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said. "I'm Victoria Cross, president of the Lakeside Meadows Homeowners Association. I am the law." Her words sent a chill through me. She genuinely believed she controlled my life, my home, everything. 10 minutes later, a police car arrived. A weary officer stepped out. "Morning, Mrs. Cross," he said, sighing. "What's the issue today?" Today? This was a regular occurrence? He listened as Victoria spun her tale of a traffic crisis caused by my truck, glancing at the empty street. When she finished, he turned to me. "You moving in, son?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said. "Just bought the place. I can move the truck if needed." He eyed the truck, the empty street, then Victoria, his expression that of someone who'd dealt with her too many times. "Mrs. Cross, the truck's on his property and isn't blocking anything," he said, to me with a hint of sympathy. "Welcome to the neighborhood. You'll figure out how to handle this." As the police car left, I turned back to my truck, hoping to move past the bizarre encounter. But Victoria lingered, her eyes fixed on my cabin with a hungry edge. "Nice place," she said. "My family used to own all this land, you know." Every inch, her tone wasn't nostalgic. It was bitter, like she was talking about something stolen that she intended to reclaim. "All of it," she repeated, staring at my house. My excitement for my new home began to fade. What had I just stepped into? 3 days later, I applied for a permit to build a small dock, just a simple platform for morning coffee or launching a kayak. Knowing Victoria's attitude, I meticulously studied the neighborhood rules, city regulations, and environmental requirements. My 23-page application, complete with diagrams, was flawless. I submitted it to the neighborhood board, confident I'd covered everything. That afternoon, a rejection email arrived. "Application denied due to incomplete environmental study." I was baffled. I'd included one. So I hired an environmental expert for $800. She treated my modest dock plan like a major construction project, taking soil and water samples and producing a 47-page report stating the dock's impact would be negligible, like a bird landing on the lake. I resubmitted with her report, certain it was bulletproof. 2 days later, another rejection. Application denied due to proposed materials not meeting community aesthetic standards. This was absurd. I'd chosen the same wood as the community dock. Determined, I upgraded to premium cedar, adding $500 to the cost, and resubmitted. The third rejection came faster. Application denied. Structure may visually offend lake users. It was a dock, not a billboard. I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Still, I didn't give up. I downsized the dock to a tiny 6 by 6 foot platform, barely noticeable. The fourth rejection was the strangest yet. Application denied until 75% of neighbors provide written approval. They wanted me to campaign door to door like a politician. I spent a Saturday knocking on doors. Most neighbors were friendly but hesitant. "Sorry," said a woman from House 12. "We don't want trouble with Victoria." An elderly couple with kayaks chuckled. "Good luck. We've been trying to repaint our fence for 3 years." During this, I had a real conversation with Walter Hayes, a 72-year-old retired professor living 4 houses down. His weathered face suggested years spent outdoors. When I mentioned my dock issue, he glanced nervously at Victoria's house. "Son," he said, "anything involving the lake here is tricky." His tone hinted at something darker. "There's a history most don't know about," he added, then stopped himself. "But it's not my place to say." I gathered signatures from 60% of the neighbors, not enough for the required supermajority. The finish line kept moving. Then came the email that changed everything, with an attached file labeled Official HOA Property Map. My heart sank as I opened it. According to the map, the entire lakeshore, including the strip behind my house, belonged to the neighborhood association. My $500,000 lakefront home had no lake access. I stared at the document, rereading it, hoping I'd misread. But it was clear. I owned my house and land, but stepping toward the water meant trespassing on association property. It was like buying a car without roads to drive on. For 2 days, I pored over the map, trying to make sense of it. By Thursday, I'd had enough. This was insane. I'd paid $500,000 for lake access, and no official map could change that. I decided to test their claim. What could they do? Call the police for walking in my own backyard. At 10 a.m., I strolled out my back door, casually walking 30 feet toward the water, planning to dip my toes in, snap a photo, and figure out my next move. Halfway there, Victoria materialized, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, as if she'd been watching me through binoculars, which I realized she probably had. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice triumphant. "You're trespassing on association property." She held a violation notice, a copy of her map, and was recording me like I was a rare specimen. "I'm calling the police to report a crime," she declared loudly. Faces appeared in windows along the street. My first week, and I was the neighborhood spectacle. "Ma'am," I said, staying calm, "this is my backyard. I just want to touch the water. I own a lakefront home." She was already dialing, silencing me with her signature finger. "Yes, I need police for a crime in Lakeside Meadows," she said. "This person's accessing a restricted area despite prior warnings." Prior warnings? Besides the truck incident? She'd never warned me about anything. Officer Johnson arrived 15 minutes later, looking more exhausted than before. Victoria positioned herself between me and the lake, waving her papers and narrating to her phone about rule breakers. She launched into her rehearsed speech. "Officer Johnson, this individual has been repeatedly warned about property boundaries. This map clearly shows the lakefront as community property. He has no right to be here." She handed over her documents with practiced confidence. Johnson studied her map, checked his computer, and compared the boundaries. His expression grew heavy. "Sir," he said quietly to me, "based on this paperwork, you need to return to your house. I know it's frustrating, but I have to follow the documents I'm given." The 30-foot walk back felt like a public surrender. Neighbors watched as I was escorted off what I thought was my land. Victoria stood, arms crossed, smiling like she'd won a long-planned game. She'd crushed me, and she knew it. In my living room, I stared at the lake through my window, feeling like a prisoner. A $500,000 lakefront home, and I couldn't touch the water. It was like buying a car without wheels or a book with sealed pages. That night, feeling defeated, I dove into property law online. Most of it was dense legal jargon, but mentions of historical property rights caught my eye. Old laws that might override newer neighborhood rules. Maybe Walter knew something. But what if Victoria had buried the truth? Saturday morning, I stood on Walter's porch clutching the map. His guarded look during our last talk suggested he knew more than he'd shared. When he opened the door, coffee mug in hand, his expression shifted from surprise to caution. "Morning, Jake," he said, glancing at Victoria's house. "What's up?" I showed him the map and explained my lake access issue. His reaction gave me hope. He laughed, shaking his head like he'd seen a clever trick. "Well, I'll be," he said, setting down his coffee. "That's some creative map making. Victoria's always been good with computers." His eyes sharpened. "Son, this map's completely fake. Not just wrong, fake." My pulse raced. "You're saying she fabricated it?" I asked. He nodded, inviting me inside. "It's time you heard the real story." Walter's home was a cozy professor's haven, books everywhere, worn furniture, a lifetime of curiosities. He retrieved an old shoebox from his study. "Victoria comes from the family that once owned this area," he began, settling into a chair. "Her father, Henry Cross, held hundreds of acres, including the lake, in the 50s and 60s. The Crosses built lakeside meadows from scratch. Victoria grew up thinking it was her family's kingdom." He handed me a faded 1963 photo of a stressed man, Henry Cross, signing papers at a table with lawyers. A sign in the background reading, "Public Lake Access Permanent by County Order." "Henry's business collapsed in '63, Walter said. "Bad deals, legal issues. He sold the lakefront lots to pay debts, but county law forced him to preserve public lake access forever." The words hit me hard. "So I do have lake access?" I asked. Walter nodded. "You and every lakefront owner. It's in the original contracts, backed by state law. Victoria's known this forever, but hopes no one digs deep enough." His next words sobered me. "Proving it's the issue. You need county records, not just my word or a photo, and Victoria might have made those records hard to find." He glanced at her house. "I should have spoken up years ago, but she makes life tough for anyone who challenges her. Permits stall, violations appear. She wields the system like a weapon." He looked resolute. "Maybe it's time someone with nothing to lose took her on." Monday, Walter and I were in the county courthouse basement, surrounded by dusty filing cabinets. Sarah, a kind clerk, pulled 1963 cross-property records. "These are fragile," she said, spreading documents. She found it. "Henry Cross Property Subdivision, approved March 15, 1963. Permanent public access to lake waters preserved for all lakefront owners." Victoria's map was not only fake, it violated county records older than her. But Sarah cautioned, "You'll need a professional survey for court. These old descriptions use outdated landmarks." The surveyor's quote, $3,000, stung, wiping out my home furnishing savings. But I agreed. While waiting, I dug into the association's public financial records. For 15 years, they charged $50 monthly lake maintenance fees per household, $47,000 total from 47 homes. But there were no receipts for equipment, contracts, or lake work. The money vanished into vague administrative costs and community improvements with no trace. Nearly $50,000 collected for a lake the association didn't own. My lawyer confirmed if the association didn't own the lake, those fees were fraud, opening the door to a lawsuit for restitution and fines. But she warned, Victoria won't go down easily. People like her have contingency plans. The surveyor called Friday. "Your lake access is 100% legal," he said. "The 1963 agreement is ironclad, broader than modern rights, and the association never owned the lake or shoreline. Yet they've been charging fees." It was a bombshell. They'd collected money for property they had no right to manage. This wasn't just about my dock anymore. It was about justice for a community deceived for 15 years. I planned to expose Victoria's lies publicly. For a week, I played defeated, avoiding neighbors, looking broken. When I saw Victoria on her walks, I gazed out my window like a beaten man. She took the bait, growing bolder, posting "no trespassing" signs around the lake and strutting like she owned it. Neighbors noticed, whispering about her increasing control. She even confronted people for walking too close to the water. Then she sent the email that sealed her fate. Final resolution of property dispute. It read, Mr. Morrison, prepare to vacate within 30 days. Your home violates community water access rules. It was a written confession of her illegal actions, signed electronically. Every lawyer had told me, get it in writing. She'd handed me the perfect weapon. I ordered a high-end steel security gate, bypassing the association by securing county permits directly. I installed cameras covering my property and lake access. If Victoria reacted, I'd have it recorded. Walter called, worried about her email. She doesn't like losing, he said. Be careful. I assured him I was ready. Tomorrow will be interesting, I said. Keep your camera handy. At 6 a.m., the gate installation truck arrived, drawing attention. Victoria on her walk froze, then called the police, ranting about unauthorized structures. She stormed over, waving her fake map. I stepped onto my porch, calm, clipboard in hand. Officer Johnson, she shouted, this violates community standards. I let her finish, then handed Johnson my folder. County Surveyor's Report, 1963 records and permits. As he compared my documents to her map, her confidence crumbled. Mrs. Cross, he said, these county records confirm this is private property with lake access rights. Mr. Morrison can install this gate. Her face paled. Neighbors gathered, drawn by the commotion. Walter arrived with the 1963 photo. I addressed the crowd. We've paid $47,000 in lake maintenance fees over 15 years, but the association never owned the lake. Gas rippled through. $9,000 from us, cried the kayak couple. Where's the money, others demanded, phones recording. Victoria, surrounded, stammered. I was protecting my father's legacy. But the crowd, armed with my evidence, wasn't listening. Walter held up the photo. This is Henry Cross signing lake access rights to the public in 1963. Victoria's known all along. Her excuses, administrative costs, environmental protection, fell flat. Show us the receipts, neighbors shouted. I unveiled a plaque on my gate. Public lake access, permanent right from 1963. No association authority. I pressed the remote, and the gate closed with a satisfying click. Victoria was defeated. Neighbors planned lawsuits and leadership changes. A child ran to the lake, splashing joyfully, followed by others reclaiming their rights. I handed Walter the remote. For telling the truth, I said. The video of Victoria's downfall went viral locally, inspiring others to challenge corrupt associations. Sometimes one person can defeat a tyrant, and it's about more than winning. It's about justice. The lake is ours again, as it always was.